Well, Monday, during a speech on the Senate floor, Senator James Lankford said we've come a long way in the issue of race in America, but we clearly have a very long way to go. We are joined live now by Senator Lankford. Senator, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Well, Sunday, Republican Mitt Romney marched in a protest in D.C. over the death of George Floyd and said, quote, to make sure that people understand that Black lives matter. Have you considered marching?
I've been around the march, but the difficulty of being in the march is several things. One is you don't know what the message is at any time in the given marches. And then obviously for security reasons, there's been challenges with several of the marches. So I haven't. I've spent my time instead on the phone with people. I've gone to some of the marches and kind of stood back to be able to watch some of it and to be able to hear some of the voices. But the key thing for me is to be able to hear the ideas, be able to talk to individuals, be able to know what we can implement and what will work and what won't work.
You criticized President Trump for his excursion across Lafayette Square to St. John's Episcopal Church, where he took a photo, saying that it distracted from important conversations that people are having on racism and peaceful protests. The president then tweeted about your comment and said people liked his walk. Have you talked to the president since?
I haven't talked to the president since. I've talked to some of his staff since then. My comment even at that time was it's entirely appropriate for the president to be able to go over to a location that's a historic church directly across the street from the White House that was damaged by vandalism and fire and destruction at that church, to be able to step in and visit it. My statement to the president was wrong time to do it right before the curfew begins when there's a large crowd around it wasn't as effective as it would have been the next morning when there's no crowd there. So I think it's appropriate for the president to be able to be there, but to be able to do it in a non-confrontational way would be I think a greater help. And he had just given a really great speech in the Rose Garden where he talked about what's happening in race in America, how we need to be able to pull together, how we need to be able to confront the rioters and to say this is not the way to be able to honor George Floyd. And then I think it distracted from it. So no one's talking about the speech anymore. They're talking about the confrontation with the protesters there.
Colin Powell stated over the weekend that he was going to vote for Joe Biden. It's also been reported that George W. Bush and Mitt Romney will not support the president come November. Does the president have your vote?
He does, actually. When I look at the policy areas between Joe Biden and between President Trump, there's no comparison on some very basic things about life. Even this conversation about law enforcement, the constant drum that's coming from the left right now to defund police, to take out police from schools. These things don't make sense in a real world. This is what we wish the world would be, but we have to be able to deal with the world that is at this point, and to be able to deal with what do we do to be able to reform processes and to be able to help move us long-term forward. And so I've got to look at the policies on it. Colin Powell obviously announced that he voted for President Obama, that he had voted for several Democrats in the past. So that's not a surprise to me in that sense. But right now we've got a long way until the election. Let's get a chance to look at the policies on it rather than just the verbiage.
There's talk of another stimulus bill in July. Some of the priorities mentioned by the White House: payroll tax cut, return to work cash bonus, potential extension of some unemployment benefits, tax deductions, liability protection for businesses. What do you think will be in the bill?
I think liability for businesses and for entities like lenders and such has to be there. That's a major feature. There's businesses right now that are reopening that are really afraid if they have even the smallest issue that they could be shut down. After going through all the issues with coronavirus, now they're afraid to be able to reopen, to know what are the legal issues that are out there. So we've got to give them some kind of legal certainty so they know what gross negligence looks like. And we want to avoid that to protect workers and protect customers, but also they know they have the freedom to be able to reopen. And then we've got to look at things like we did last week with the Paycheck Protection Program. The Senate passed, the president's already signed a reform of the Paycheck Protection Program to say there were some problems that were in the program itself at the beginning. So let's try to fix those. I think there are some other problems that are still there that still need to be fixed, like C6 organizations and others that are out there that are nonprofits that got missed. And so we want to be able to make sure that we can fix what we need to. But the biggest thing is to watch the reopening of the economy to make sure that happens. We've obviously seen the unemployment rate drop dramatically last week. That's a good thing as businesses are reopening, not just in the United States, but worldwide. That's helpful for the economy more than any government program.
Does the payroll protection make it difficult to see what the true unemployment is, though? Essentially, under the plan that the government is paying to keep keep people employed. So do we really know, what's going to happen when that runs out?
We don't at this point. The biggest goal for the Paycheck Protection Program and the extended unemployment benefits was to be able to help people in a time where there was a forced shutdown. Now that we are reopening again, obviously that lifts off. The Paycheck Protection Program was only 8 weeks long. And so that allows us to be able to keep unemployment during this time period, especially people in small businesses. The unemployment insurance, the additional benefits on that runs out at the end of July. And so, again, that allows us to be able to reopen the economy and folks that have not reengaged to be able to reengage. So it's important that we just keep the ball rolling at this point, continue to be able to monitor health and issues, but we should not just shut down the economy artificially longer than it needs to be.
Last week, the Senate Judiciary Committee voted 12-10 to approve the nomination of Judge Justin Walker to the D.C. Court of Appeals. The Senate will vote on this appointment as soon as this week. This is, by most counts, the second highest court in our country and a stepping stone to the Supreme Court. We discussed this issue right after the president nominated him. There was criticism when he was named as a U.S. District Court judge last fall due to his lack of trial experience, and the American Bar Association labeled him as, quote, unqualified. This is, I asked you last time, if you remember, when he was nominated back in April, if you would vote to appoint him, and you said that you needed to review what the job required. What do you think of his nomination now?
No, I know what the job required. I don't remember the context of that. Obviously, the D.C. Circuit Court is an exceptionally important court on that. The American Bar Association has now reviewed his nomination again, and they have now ranked him as qualified. So not only the American Bar Association has noted him as qualified, I believe he's qualified. He served on the bench in the district court. He's now going to a circuit court, and that is entirely appropriate for him to be able to be there.
All right, Senator James Lankford, we appreciate you taking time for us this morning, and thank you again.
Thank you.